Hello, welcome to a special episode of Galactic Initiative, the Book of Boba Fett, Chapter 1. I'm your host, Jeff. Grand Admiral Sean is with me. Welcome, Sean.
Hello, my friend.
Let's begin. Chapter 1 was titled Stranger in a Strange Land. It opened with glimpses of familiar locations around Jabba's palace, all empty and quiet. Boba suffered bad dreams inside a Bacta tank. He glimpsed his childhood home on Kamino before reliving his father's death on Geonosis, and on Tatooine, his escape from the Sarlacc, and his capture by Tusken Raiders. I waited 38 years to see Boba's escape from the Sarlacc. It unfolded with all the cleverness of a flamethrower in a meat factory, and took less than 3 minutes. How do you feel about the flashback?
I will say that at the beginning of the flashback, I was very excited. When we got the view of Kamino, and we saw Slave One there, and we saw the Geonosis arena, and the severed head of Jango Fett and all that. I was like, this is going to be intense. This is going to be great. And then we got to the stormtrooper stuck in the goo, and a very 1970s Doctor Who looking special effects of the gooey belly of the Sarlacc, and then punching through a stomach wall with a flamethrower. It became very awkward and clunky. It was over way too quickly. And I hate to say this, but I've seen some fan films portraying this moment in Boba Fett's lore that are way better looking and way better produced, and the costumes look even better. And that really hurts my heart to say that there's actually fan films that exist right now on the internet that you can go find them on YouTube, and they do a better job of showing the return of Boba Fett than the few moments that we got at the beginning of this episode.
Yeah, it's a shame. It's a missed opportunity. I'm not here to rewrite the show, but the significance of this moment, having waited for it for so long, cannot be overstated. I want to believe that we didn't see the entire flashback. Based on subsequent events, I think that's it. There have been many versions of this story told in Legends novels about Boba Fett and comics about Boba Fett. All the versions I've ever come across, this was perhaps the simplest and the worst. He turned on his flamethrower.
He gave it heartburn. So I don't know. There's some moments in that scene that were decent. Okay, and not to completely destroy this thing right off the bat. The whole thing where he's covered in the goo, so when he climbs out, all the sand is caked on him. I thought that was good. I thought that was reasonable and well done and well thought out. Like, if you're going to be stuck in the stomach of something, when you crawl through the sand, it's going to stick to you. Okay, cool. Struggling out was good. I mean, he's not Superman. He's not, just jumping out of the Sarlacc's belly after who knows how long he's been down there and saying, "Oh, I'm fine. I'm just wandering off," which some of the fan films do and some of the other things in lore talk about. So, and of course, him being injured sets up other portions of the show that we'll get to. But the fact that we didn't get the complete special edition Sarlacc, we didn't get the Dune sandworm inside of the Sarlacc that we got in the special edition, which was nice, right? So our friends Favreau and Filoni are peeling back some of that damage that's been done to the trilogy. But I found that the things that really excited me about the beginning of this, with the flashbacks to the previous films, Attack of the Clones and whatnot, the juxtaposition of those cinematic moments, cutting those things out of the cinematic films and then splicing them in to this television program, made the special effects or the quality of the show in the the moments immediately following that more low budget than I think it really was. The waves on Kamino, and you have the arena on Geonosis, and then you get this plastic bag thing that he's in, and he's covered in goo, and you're like, it felt going from grand and sort of epic into really small and pathetic in a way. And I don't know if that's supposed to be an artistic element of this. We go from the vast expanse of Camino to this claustrophobic gullet of this beast. But the Sarlacc is a big animal. We saw that in Return of the Jedi. We saw that in The Mandalorian, right? We saw that a Sarlacc hole in the ground or whatever can also hold a crate dragon and a few other things. So it felt like it went from large scale to small scale very quickly, and the small scale that we got wasn't as high a quality. And so really, again, it was jarring and sort of took me out of it. And then you have this whole weird thing with the stormtrooper. Where did the stormtrooper come from? Why is it there? There were no stormtroopers at the demise of Jabba on the Katana. And is this some guy from the previous patrol looking for Luke many, many years ago? Is he being slowly digested over 1,000 years? Who knows? I mean, his armor was full of acid holes and things like that. But that was a little random for me as well. Yes, it was a convenient plot point. Boba Fett got his oxygen or whatever. Again, there's a lot of small and incongruous things going on in that moment, and that just doesn't do justice to what it is we're expecting, right? So we talked about the return of Luke Skywalker and what it meant and how it was received and the amount of care that went into it and all those things. I don't know if we got that with the return of Boba Fett in season 2 of The Mandalorian, or season 1 even, but season 2 where he fully comes on screen. It felt like there was a great story there, and I'm hoping that as the season goes on, we get the great story, but it felt like it was almost glossed over, or it was truncated so we could just get on to the air quote more important things of him with the Sand People. And I don't know if this is a byproduct of this new TV format thing that Disney's all about with Star Wars, because The Mandalorian was so successful. So now we're just going to have Star Wars TV. And then this really weird commitment to less than 40 minutes of television for every episode. It just feels like we moved way too fast through this whole moment, and that it wasn't given the attention. And we had talked about, in our review of this season of The Mandalorian, there were some scenes where it felt like they may have used their entire budget on something, and then they were kind of like, oh god, we got to do this other thing. We'll get the bantha sticks, and we'll do the thing where they kind of looks like they're riding a bantha, but it's actually like a wooden pony or whatever, right? Because we already spent all of our money on the Krayt Dragon. And I felt like they may have spent all their money rebuilding Jabba's palace, and now they're like, oh, we also got to do that Sarlacc thing. Let's throw them over here in a closet with some plastic bags, and we'll put some weird lighting on it, and we'll call it good. It just really didn't feel right. It didn't feel like it was given the attention, the time, the money, whatever, the resources, to really make it that impactful moment. Like, this is the return of Boba Fett. It's been hinted at. We've seen him walking around. We know he's alive. But this is your moment. And you blew it.
Even the wreckage of the sail barge. If you watch the explosion, the entire area littered with debris, but it wasn't. Is that a factor of budget? If that's the case, then write a different story, but don't cheapen the story that you're trying to tell. Return of the Jedi, they built a barge. It's a big scene. No, you can't live up to it in a TV show, so what can you do?
That really didn't bother me as much as the inside of the Sarlacc. This is one of the things that fans have been speculating about for 4 decades almost now. Boba Fett is this character, and we kind of spoke about this a little bit before we started recording, that Boba Fett is this character that in the grand scheme of Star Wars time is one of the minor characters, but he plays such an important role in Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, and he has this menacing demeanor. He's basically the Clint Eastwood of the Star Wars saga, right? He's the silent stranger that sits in the corner and broods and is menacing, and does things that are questionable morally, but whatever. Like he's the great bounty hunter, the greatest bounty hunter in the galaxy is his reputation. He's spawned this fan base, and then this whole thing about Mandalorians. They weren't even a deal. They weren't even a thing until after Empire Strikes Back. Millions of people who are Mandalorian fans, and then, of course, all the stuff that came later, the Clone Wars and all the stuff, all of George's spin-offs from that came from this one character. And there is an intensely loyal fan group within Star Wars that have to deal with Boba Fett and the Mandalorians. And they had to have known that this thing is wish fulfillment for those people, and it's something that they've been looking forward to and talking about and speculating about and writing about and drawing and dreaming of for 4 decades, and it didn't get what it deserved. They could have made most of the first episode about this moment and then said, okay, we'll deal with all this other stuff later. Just show us that. Start the episode with him escaping from the Sarlacc and make that like 25 minutes of the first episode. Make the first episode an hour, or give us all the other stuff that you wanted to give us about what he's been doing since then. But really, the consideration of what it was for Boba Fett to escape the Sarlacc.
So, moving on. Jawa knocked out Boba with the butt of an ionization blaster, and the scavengers all laughed. This uncharacteristic aggression surprised me. The same group of Jawas negotiated with Cobb Vanth, who was in terrible shape when they found him. An off-world group stunned the Mandalorian when he attacked its sandcrawler with lethal force. I was joking with my friend as we're watching. He had a water bottle sitting by his left foot. The Jawas would take the water bottle and claim it as their own and refuse to give it back. But if you had it in your left hand, they would want to trade for it. I was really surprised to see a Jawa use violence. What say you?
Yeah, I think it's inconsistent with what we've seen before. Now, the off-world Jawas are a whole other animal, no pun intended. But yes, these are the people, or these are the Jawas that we saw in episode 4 and the Mandalorian. Your analogy with the water bottle is consistent with my understanding of how they work. There's some strange nuance to some of the established things in the Star Wars universe in this episode. One of them is the Sand People, and we'll talk about that. The Jawas here are acting uncharacteristically, especially taking delight in the harming of Boba Fett. That doesn't feel very Jawa-y. These are creatures that run away or hide. It doesn't seem like violence is their thing. They're really just kind of, I don't know, like almost like petty criminals. They're traders, right? They're trying. Their thing is buy, sell, trade, fix, and it's finders keepers. But it would have been better, I think, or at least more consistent with the Jawa, is if they had poked him and he hadn't moved, and then they stripped him and then left, and then have him wake up later without his armor. It would achieve the same thing. We've tied up the plot point, right, from the season 2, and we've been consistent with our portrayal of the Jawas. But as we've talked about in our other critiques of this Filoniverse that we're living in, is that certain things are being rewritten or reorganized. I always kind of looked at the Jawas as kind of fun or funny in a way. They're kind of cute, and they do their thing, but I never felt like they were malicious or that they had ill intent or were malevolent. They're doing semi-shady things to try and put food on the table. And that's kind of the way I've always viewed them. And in this one now, they feel more like they're into strong arm robbery now all of a sudden. So, yeah, I don't know. It just didn't feel right.
There's a consistency issue there. It certainly casts the Jawas in a different light. Okay, so Tusken Raiders took Boba as a captive. He was pulled and dragged on a journey across the desert. He was beaten and knocked unconscious by young raiders. A Rhodian captive alerted the tribe as Boba attempted to escape. He spared a Tusken child and defended himself from a Massif before one of the adults KO'd him. Third knockout in less than 10 minutes. The Tuskens wore dark robes And though their headgear was indicative of males, I suspect they were females, one and all. They were thin and narrow-shouldered. Their postures and movements were feminine to my eyes. Your thoughts on the scene on the Sand People?
Well, first of all, it's recognizing that these are not your father's Sand People. These are not original trilogy or prequel trilogy Sand People. They have a completely different look. They're not even season 1 and 2 Mandalorian Sand People. So we have these dark, these like black, and I think there's some red in there and some other things. It's a very different color palette, darker browns for their clothing. It's not even the traditional robe. And I say traditional, like I'm some kind of anthropologist of Sand People, but it's not the robe that we saw in any of these previous shows, and the bandoliers and things like that. The masks are slightly different. The eyes are bigger, like the eye pipes or the eye holes are bigger. But there's the same trappings and the same aesthetic of Sand People. So, and then the other thing is the tents. When we saw the Sand People in the prequels in their native dwelling, it was a totally different style. And maybe these are Sand People who are moving between settlements, and that's why they had the cloth tents. But I was expecting to see those semi-permanent, walnut shell or hazelnut shell looking dwellings from the prequels. I'm sure that as we get farther into this, we're going to find out what makes these Sand People different than other Sand People. There's a lot of stuff going on in this episode, not enough time for any of it to really be developed. This episode suffers from a Rise of Skywalker-esque pace in the sense that it is a bunch of vignettes tied together rather rapidly over the course of 40 minutes. We don't ever really get to sit anywhere for any one extended period of time and really understand what's going on. What is the purpose of capturing Boba Fett? It's good, the bad, the ugly, right? We're dragging him through the desert behind the horse. And they've got the parasol, and they're looking at him going, Blondie! Okay, great. So they drag him through the desert behind the bantha. They tie him up next to the village or the tents. Why? Why would they keep him? What value does he serve? I mean, he's practically dead. They find him. Like, they have to revive him in order to take him to wherever they're going. And then they tie him up to a stick, and then he's there for the amusement of the children, so they can hit him with sticks. And then suddenly the Rhodian appears. Like, where did he come from? And it's not like I have to have his entire backstory and know what planet he's from and what his kids' names are, but like, where did they find him? Could that be an instrumental piece later on in the story? We may find out. I don't know. It's just there's stuff here that needs to be explained, and I'm really kind of getting at the end of my patience with the Sand People talking without subtitles. It's very holiday special-esque, where we have a bunch of Wookiees talking for like 25 minutes with no subtitles, and we're supposed to just get it. But every time an alien spoke in the original Star Wars, and it was something important that we needed to know as an audience, we got a subtitle. Why are they talking about capturing him? What are they saying while they've captured him, or while they're beating him? The younglings, as he refers to them later. But what are the young Sand People doing? Is this a cultural thing? Is this how this is where they learn their savage ways, or their animalistic ways, as Klieglar has talked about? What is this? Explain it to me. I want to know. It's not a waste of my time. Clearly, this is skipping ahead, but clearly at the end of the episode, something changes, and we still don't know why or how. Maybe stay tuned till next week. But it's weird. And this whole fascination, and you had said this earlier off mic, the fascination that Filoni and Favreau have with the Sand People and their constant reappearance in these shows has changed very much the nature of this species or this race or whatever you want to call them. They have gone from being a savage or mindless or less than evolved group of people who don't like outsiders and kill people randomly, to now starting to fall into some kind of weird, like, Bedouin tribal structure. And now we have different cultural artifacts when it comes to clothing and adornment and dwelling and all this other stuff. And so now, like, you're introducing a lot of stuff here just by changing their costumes. And I know they're trying to make it unique and interesting. And to speak to your earlier speculation about the gender, I too, when the crowds were barking back and forth at the end, I could definitely hear what sounded like more female or feminine voices of the Tusken Raiders, but I don't know if they all are. That we'd have to explain where the kids come from, and maybe that's why they captured Boba Fett. Maybe it's a dog and his boy, and it's Don Johnson, and it's 1980 something. I don't know. We're 1/7 of the way through the show already, and we have more questions than answers. But what are we going to do with this tribe? What are we going to see? How is it going to pan out? And what's with the sudden respect? Yes, he killed this thing, but it just creates more uncertainty.
He was rewarded with a hoverboard for killing the Clash of the Titans villain. You get a drink.
But release the Kraken. I was waiting for the mechanical owl to fly by.
All right. Fennec Shand wakes Boba for a tribute session. Boba dons his armor, and then he's in the throne room, and you have various representatives, important personages coming to pay tribute. So there's an Aqualish with credits in a case, a representative of the Trandoshan family. Doc Strassi brings a Wookiee pelt. There's some humor. We really need a protocol droid. Use of the title daimyo, indicative of a medieval Japanese lord. I thought that was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Jabba's torture droid, 8D8, who was in the room with 9D9 when R2-D2 and C-3PO come in. This is the droid that was in the corner torturing the power droid. The two Gamorreans who had been loyal to their previous masters, and Fett asks them, if I spare you, will you be loyal to me? And Shan says this is a mistake, and of course it's going to pay off in a scene. And finally, we have Mok Shez. The mayor of Mos Espa is announced, but in fact his Twi'lek major domo has come in his stead. And rather than providing tribute, there's an expectation of tribute to be paid. I enjoyed the heck out of the scene, and it felt maybe the most Star Wars of any scene in the episode to me. What did you think of it?
I thought it was fantastic. I thought this was, like you said, this is one of the better parts of the episode. This is why we tuned in, honestly, based on a lot of the stuff that we saw and the way that this show was introduced with Boba Fett walking into Jabba's palace and wasting Bib Fortuna. Like, this is why we tuned into the show. We want to see what is it that Boba Fett is trying to achieve by going back into Jabba's palace and assuming the role of crime boss. While it is one of my favorite moments in the show, it brings way more questions to the fore than it answers. But I do like many of the elements of this, the people coming through this tribute session, the callbacks, the use of characters from the previous films, the being in the throne room again, fantastic. It was very Godfather-esque in a way. Come to my house on the day of my daughter's wedding and all that kind of stuff. Like, everybody's coming by and kissing the ring, so to speak, except for the one guy who's representing the mayor and the major domo. The humor about when a Trandoshan gives you a compliment, it sounds like a threat. The Wookiee pelt, all that stuff, like, it's all great in there. But we are still now halfway through almost this episode, and we don't understand Fett's motivation for doing this. Why is he stepping into this role? Maybe the mayor is the real power on Tatooine, or at least in this area. And in order for Bib Fortuna to maintain his veneer of being a crime boss, that maybe he's paying the mayor, right? And that's why the mayor's guy showed up and said, "Yo, give us some tribute, otherwise you're going to be in a world of hurt." I don't know. I like to know a few things, and I don't have to have it all at once, but we need some kind of foundational statements or conversations, and this is where I think the side conversations between Fennec Shand and Boba Fett can be good. Something like that, and that gives you a goal to achieve, right? And then the story can be, how do you achieve that goal, or do you achieve that goal, right? Either way, it doesn't matter. We can have great success or great failure. This whole thing could wind up in the death of Boba Fett and the collapse of organized crime in the Outer Rim. Who knows? But the visuals of it, the dialogue, the humor, like you say, the major domo guy, the way he's like, everything comes out of his mouth, he's like, oh, apologies, and he's bowing deep and sweeping his arms wide, and oh, my apologies, basically threatening to kill you, and he's apologizing for it and being very very polite. And this is one of the things I love about crime family mafia type stories or intergalactic political drama like in Dune, is you have these characters that put on the veneer of civility and diplomacy, and they're actually really, really, really bad dudes. And so I enjoyed that juxtaposition with that character. And again, the recreation of Jabba's throne room is amazing. And I know we saw some of the conversations about that in the gallery on Disney Plus, but it looks fantastic, and it looks just like it did. I mean, barring some lighting and some smoke effects, it looks just like it did in Return of the Jedi, and it's awesome.
So Boba and Fennec, I'm laughing. All right. Boba and Fennec visited Garsa Fwip's Sanctuary Casino in Mos Espa. This city bore no resemblance to the settlement from Episode 1. It was exponentially larger, sprawled across a plateau and a crater. The goings-on in the casino, there's a lot to unpack here. Right at the very beginning, we see Max Rebo and Figure and Dan. Max Rebo was on the sail barge, correct? They showed him playing his right.
Well, but so it wasn't Bib Fortuna?
Yes, Bib Fortuna was on the sail barge. So
Max
there are multiple
Rebo characters now who have survived.
Yeah. I guess I was more excited about Figure and Dan than I was about Max Rebo. We haven't seen that guy since 1977. So it's very, very cool. And I don't know if you noticed, they're playing the Cantina Band song.
In a different tempo, right?
Yes. Love that. That's a clever callback. Boba and Fennec enter the casino. They're approached by a male and a female Twi'lek, and they're asked about having their helmets cleaned. And then when Garsa Fwip arrives, she offers to hose down and feed the Gamorreans. Boba introduces Fennec Shand as a master assassin. Several jokes about being carried on a litter. Boba insists, like, I walk on my own 2 feet. Apparently, when you're a big deal in Mos Espa, you get carried around on a litter. Boba receives his helmet, his cleaned helmet with credits inside of it, and that's the tribute. What are your impressions of this scene?
It's fun. It's an extension of the palace scene right now. He's on the road to get his tribute. He's going now to shake down the local businesses, or at least the high-end businesses like the casino. I thought it was interesting. I thought it was there was some subtlety there that was pretty good. The using of the welcoming kind of attitude, the hospitality thing. Hey, come on in, and you're fresh off the road with the dirt. We'll clean your helmets. We'll feed your pigs, and then you walk out of here with a helmet full of credits. And it's a very subtle way for this person to do the tribute thing without publicly showing that she's throwing in with him, or that she's showing not weakness, but acknowledging his station or his power over her, but doing it in your place of business and doing it in front of your customers in such a way that they don't see or know that's what's going on. I thought was very cool. This casino is fascinating to me. It has a lot of the callbacks to the aesthetic of the cantina from Episode 4 and the other cantinas that we've seen in the Mandalorian show. So it has that Tatooine architectural nod, but there's a lot of very different things. I mean, we have a couple of palm trees, which is kind of cool in a way. Like, we haven't really seen, for the most part, a lot of lushness on the planet. So again, it shows that this is a very luxurious, high-end establishment. the thing about the money, okay, so when they get the helmet and the helmet's full of money, all those coins have the Rebel Alliance or New Republic logo, whatever you want to call it, on them, or most of them do. That's interesting to me because that seems a little fast. For only 3 to 5 years after the fall of the Empire, or at the very least with the death of the Emperor, we still understand that there is this whole thing going on. They're still fighting the Empire. They're still trying to establish the rule of the New Republic, as we saw in The Mandalorian. So we're just at this point where we're at the end of the Empire, or ending of the Empire, and we have understood from the Mandalorian show that this portion of the galaxy is still very much in contention. So that much is interesting to me, and I'm wondering if there's something there, or some future symbolism, or maybe an alliance or an allegiance that this lady who runs the casino has with the New Republic. I don't know. So it'll be, or maybe the reason why there's such a boom out here is that this is the vacation spot now, and I don't know, but it's very interesting to me that there's that big of a concentration of New Republic credits in one place. And as I talk through this now, I think, well, maybe on the other hand, this is because these things aren't considered real money, because we've also had this conversation about Imperial credits with the Mandalorian, and the only thing that seems to work in the galaxy anymore is calamari flan. So who knows, right? Like, who knows what's going on here? But it's fascinating to me that the way that it plays out in the very subtle, way, very covertly, her paying the tribute. Again, all these characters, the Twi'leks and all that stuff, the astromech droid serving drinks as a callback to Return of the Jedi. Again, it's another great scene, on par with what we saw in the palace. I know you have a theory that you want to share about what's going on here, and I know it also leads into the street attack scene after that. But I think that this is the stuff, again, and I said this earlier, this is the stuff that I tuned in to see. Like, I want to see Boba Fett doing what he's supposed to be doing, whatever that is, rebuilding Jabba's empire or building his own empire or doing whatever. But the conversations about ruling with respect happen here. The conversations about being carried around on the litter again, it's all coming up about there was the old way that things were done, and then here's Boba Fett trying to establish a new way of doing things. And this is a play on the title of the episode. So the Heinlein novel, Stranger in a Strange Land, is about a character. So the main character is born on Mars, and he's raised on Mars, and he comes to Earth for the first time, and he is observing Earth and its institutions and the way it works from the perspective of an outsider. And he questions everything, and he tries to reorder the universe or the planet or whatever however you want to look at it, right? He tries to change the established order to a way that he feels is better. And this is very much what Boba Fett is doing in this episode. For all intents and purposes, an outsider. I'm sure he's visited Tatooine a lot as a bounty hunter, right? And he kind of knows, but he is not of that world, and he's not of even that particular type of crime family. He's an independent contractor. He's a bounty hunter. He works by himself. He doesn't have allegiance to any organization or government, nation state, whatever. And so he's now coming into this crime world that has very established protocols and attitudes about how you interact with your underlings and all this stuff. And he's just breezing in here now, and he's going to reorganize the whole thing the way he wants it done. And maybe this is the real plot or purpose for the show. Maybe it's going to show the arrogance or perhaps the intelligence and insight of Boba Fett in wanting to come in and do this, and all the problems that it can cause, or the problems that it can solve ultimately. Who knows? But maybe this is the core element that they're trying to give us in this episode, because if it's not that, I'm still floundering as to why we're here this far into the episode and what we're doing.
To me, Jennifer Beals Garsa Fwip, she seemed too deferential and too supportive, and gave in and accepted a change in extortion too easily. there's an attack that takes place immediately after Boba and Fennec leave the casino. So I have this feeling she's either behind the attack, and she might actually be the power in Mos Espa, or at the very least, she's double dealing. The underworld, organized crime, you rule from strength and fear. And with Boba taking a different approach, of course there's going to be pushback. And this is the one person who's just like, oh, yeah, okay, you're the new guy. Here's a helmet full of credits. And it just seemed too easy.
Yeah, we're going to find out what's going on there. But maybe it's just better for business to just pay the person. Clearly, this place is doing quite well. So why not, right? It doesn't matter who you pay the protection to as long as you have the protection. Plans within plans, right? Something is happening here. And of course, the episode ended way too soon. So we'll probably get this resolved in episode 4 or 5, right?
And the simplest explanation is usually the one. Probably innocent, and the mayor probably sent the assassins. I don't know, maybe I'm looking for complexity where it doesn't exist. So after leaving the Sanctuary Casino, Fennec and Boba are attacked by a group of assassins, Star Wars ninjas. The Gamorreans arrive in the nick of time. They start to kill some of the assassins, which then creates gaps, and Fennec and Boba do the rest. Then we go on a parkour chase across the rooftops of Mos Espa. Fennec successfully pursues and captures one of the assassins. Boba, being hurt in the battle, he needs to return immediately to his bacta tank. So he counts on the Gamorreans, and they prove their loyalty by rushing him quickly to the bacta tank, getting him in the tank so we can have another flashback. There's been a lot of speculation online about who these assassins are. Have we seen them before in Star Wars? Being completely honest, I haven't. I didn't make any connections. What did you think?
The fight, so it was good. Like they flipped one of the guys over on top of the shield and he kind of cooked a little bit. The pinning was a great tactic. I mean, that's a great street fighting tactic, right? That's every SWAT team with a shield. Also kind of had a little bit of a throwback to the Roman battle tactics with the shields and the spears and creating the turtle and all that kind of stuff. It's sort of an inverse turtle. So yeah, I mean, that was all very cool. It was nice to see the payoff with the Gamorreans showing up and kind of saving their bacon, and then shooting the rocket and blowing the guy up who was climbing up the side of the building before he passes out was kind of typical Boba Fett overkill moment, which was fantastic. The parkour thing feels a little too on the nose 2021-ish, but I also liked at the end where Fennec is like, I'm supposed to bring back someone alive. I don't have to bring back everyone alive, and I can only keep an eye on one of you guys. So she just pushes the one guy off the top of the roof, which I thought was great. I mean, she's a master assassin for a reason, right? But yeah, so that, I mean, again, hopefully we'll get the answer from that guy that she captured. Yeah, it was a good fight scene. I think that really, again, this is one of these video game moments, though. Clearly, we're using the bacta tank as the flashback machine. So we got to keep getting Boba back into the flashback machine so we can learn what happened to him. And
this is Assassin's Creed.
Exactly. Oh yeah. Yeah, and so we've got to do this thing. So the fight on the street serves a couple of purposes. It establishes that Boba Fett is not in control yet of what's going on in the town, and that people are testing his strength and testing his rule. And then it puts him in a position where we understand that he is. I mean, well, the show started with this, but we're still in that moment where he is still in recovery from the Sarlacc and all this stuff. You can see between the Mandalorian show and this episode that the bacta tank is clearly having positive effects on him. He doesn't have all the scarring and the dead skin and stuff on his head like he did in previous episodes. And he even mentions, the dreams are back and all this stuff. Well, in order for him to have the dreams, he has to be asleep or at the very least unconscious. So we're going to get flashbacks. And when flashbacks, I mean more Tusken Raiders.
Yes, indeed. More Tusken Raiders. The young raider from the previous flashback took Boba and the Rodian on a work detail for Hubagords. They observed Swoop Gang members robbing and beating a moisture farmer and tagging his house. The Rodian awakened a six-armed lizard-like monster that quickly killed it. Boba and the Tusken child worked together to destroy the monster, brought the monster's head back to the Tusken tribe. In appreciation, the Tusken chief shared a Hubagord with Boba. We're going to establish these relationships between Boba and the child, Boba and the chief. And this was a great way to go about it. And the Hubagord became very symbolic. As it was in Mando Season 2, it was, again, the Sand People value these things. This is their source of water. This is all they have. Sharing it is very meaningful. Now he's proven himself on several occasions. He spared the child in his first escape. He obviously could have hurt the child, killed the child, but he didn't. And then here they're actually working together and they bring back a trophy. This is a very Tusken thing to do, to bring back the head of a creature and celebrate that rite of passage. This is child moving to maturity. I really enjoyed the fight with this lizard-like monster. My friend who was watching the episode with me, this was his least favorite scene, but I thought this was a really cool creature. I liked its discovery in the sand. I didn't expect it. Anyway, I enjoyed the scene, enjoyed the creature. What did you think?
I enjoyed it as well. When they first started uncovering the creature, I thought it was going to be like a dewback, like because I got started to see scales and reptilian kind of action. I was like, ooh, and then like you say, I was surprised. I did feel a little bit of a callback to the original Clash of the Titans, the one from the 80s, but again, it was something new and interesting that felt Star Wars in the Star Wars universe. It didn't feel out of place, so that was a good addition. They're going out of their way. They established at the beginning of this, the young Tusken Raider is given these prisoners, I'm assuming, to go find water, and then ultimately has this mishap or this adventure with this lizard thing. Boba Fett, on one hand, in the scene leading up to this, he appears to be very much in control of everything. They put the kid in charge. He's already taken the stick away from the kid once and threatened to beat the hell out of it. He could probably do it again. And as a matter of fact, when he's trying to get a drink while they're digging, the youngling comes over and tries to whack him with the stick, and he just grabs it and hangs onto it and drinks out of the thing and like stares at him. Pretty sure at that point Boba Fett could have done whatever he wanted and gotten away with it. But he doesn't. The youngling is trying to establish its authority, because we don't know if it's a he or she, but it's trying to establish its authority over Boba Fett, and by lesser extension, the Rodian. The Rodian gave up a long time ago. He's dead inside. The thing about that last scene is, I wonder what is it that the youngling is actually saying to the tribe. If you look at the physical gestures and the movements and the sort of the replaying of the action, the youngling is telling the story of the fight. Of course, because we don't have any subtitles, we don't really know what's going on. But it appears to me, or it feels, or I got the impression that the kid was taking all the credit. Everybody's patting him on the head and they're holding him up and they're, oh, look at you, aren't you great? You're awesome. Look what you did. And then it's the chieftain or chiefess or whatever, the leader of this group, hands Boba the drink, and it's either an acknowledgement of his participation in it, in this process as described by the child, or it's an acknowledgement that the child is trying to take credit for something clearly Boba Fett did. I could use a couple of subtitles here, people. Like, just give me a little something. Even if Boba Fett doesn't understand what's being said, it would be really nice for the audience to have a better idea, because you just drop the episode pretty much at that point. I don't know. It's cool, right? All the visuals in this episode are great, right? Except for the one thing we mentioned where you have a few visuals that are way better stuck in there. For the most part, the visuals in this are great. But the core of this story, air quotes, I have no idea what's going on. 38 minutes. We are now 1/7 of the way through the season, and I have a sinking feeling that we're not going to get satisfying answers. Because if they can treat the return of Boba Fett and the escape from the Sarlacc with a quick visual and a let's move along to the next point, I'm worried that they're going to write themselves into a point in this show where we spent too much time talking with Tusken Raiders, and then, oh yeah, by the way, we got to wrap up the crime family thing, and now it's over. And see, look what we did here. Boba's back.
You've got a child and a dog, and Boba's already shown that he can deal with both. And now there's another being along with Boba. So if the two prisoners were determined to escape, they would, and odder still, they're now in proximity to a moisture farm. It has to happen the way it does because the child and Boba have to work together to destroy the lizard-like monster, but that's a really odd choice. Okay, I guess we're finished with the action, but when I finished the episode, I thought, what is the purpose of the show? Why does Boba's story matter? Like you, after 38 minutes, I'm wondering why this story needs to be told. And from a viewership standpoint, if that's what we're wondering, I'd say casual viewership is out the window right now.
I totally agree with that. This is Disney Star Wars overcompensating for the sequel trilogy. The Baby Yoda element, right? The Mandalorian was the glue that brought the Star Wars fandom back together. You know, we've seen this push by Disney Star Wars with Omega and the Bad Batch and all the stuff to, you know, have child characters. But unless the toilet paper comes off the head, we got to figure out how do we make a Tusken Raider kid cute. But even I feel like they're missing the mark on that. And so if the hardcore fan or the longtime fan is probably a better word, the longtime fans, like the 40-year fans, 50-year fans are not happy with this, the new fans, the Raylos and all those people are clearly not even caring about this because there's no Baby Yoda element. But if we had gotten a good, solid story, or at least wrapped up an episodic plot while establishing an overarching story for the next several episodes, I think everybody would walk away from this feeling a lot better and more confident in it. But for whatever reason, it's like we're left with multiple cliffhangers. We have a cliffhanger and a flashback, and we have a cliffhanger in real time. And, you know, yeah, I got to wait a week. That's fine, whatever. But I'm really worried because we are 1/7 of the way through the season.
The Mandalorian episode 1 accomplished a lot more and invited more than just hardcore fans to view the show. Episode 1 of The Mandalorian had a hook. All right, so your score for the episode on a scale of 1 to 10.
I'm going to come in with a 6. There's enough in this episode to really like, but there's a lot that I'm worried about. It's not an episode of The Bad Batch, so I'm happy about that. But it's gotta go somewhere for me to start pushing my numbers up past that.
I've been reflecting on it. I'm at a 3 or a 4. There are things that the show did well. There was some good Star Wars in the episode, but not having a direction and a plot after 40 minutes. Yeah, 3 or a 4 for me.
I only give 4s to like the Frog Lady episodes. So
our discussion of Stranger in a Strange Land has come to an end. Thank you, Sean.
Boba Fett.
I don't expect we'll be able to review all chapters of this show on a weekly basis, but we'll see how our schedules line up. We'll definitely have a season-ending review. I hope you enjoyed the discussion. Please consider a thumbs up.
Galactic Initiative is not authorized or endorsed by Lucasfilm Limited. The name Star Wars and all related materials are registered trademarks of Lucasfilm Limited, a subsidiary of the Walt Disney Company, all rights reserved. Galactic Initiative is a registered trademark, and other product and company names are trademarks of their respective holders. Use does not imply affiliation or endorsement.